Hey guys, hope you're doing well today. Having a great time. Let me just do the sound check as always to make sure things are working out. Okay. Let's see how to open this. And where is it at? Let's see. I think the internet is going slow today, guys. I don't know what's going on. Technical difficulty. Sometimes, it's just that way. Let's see. Hex. Also gonna quickly. And now. So today we're going to be reading from, let me just do I didn't do that check. No, come on. Come on, guys. They're not letting me do the sound check. I'm pretty sure it's okay. Yeah, it's always working. I mean, but I think it's better to do the sound check than to get through all of the live and then realize, oh, wow, I didn't do the sound check and nobody can hear me. So that is an important thing to do. In the meantime, make one last quick change. Guys, it's so important that we begin to cut out the people in our lives who are just dragging us down because I've been realizing more and more recently, I've been feeling more energized, more empowered, more centered because I've cut off those toxic people. And I've realized how many people in my life have been just like my mother. And it's quite a shame. It's quite sad. I'm not judging myself too much for that because it is understandable situation and pattern that was established because of how I grew up. And I think many other, not even think, I know that many other people are also dealing with the same issue today. So I just want to remind you, in case you need some help, some courage, some strength, some support, some motivation, to remember to get those toxic people out of your life, to tell them to skedaddle. I mean, sometimes you got to separate with love, cut the cord, energetic cord. And just remove yourself. You don't have to make it like some kind of theatrical, bombastic. I mean, you can if you want to, but it's probably going to cause more stir and swirl. And if you want to protect your peace, just kind of distance yourself and move those people to the side. And how does that relate to today's reading? So we're going back to the shame, healing the shame that binds you. And this is the beginning of chapter 11. So part 3, as we begin the the self-discovery process, rather. I'm just going to read a bit of this today because, again, I have an appointment, so I need to make sure I get there on time. But chapter 11, dealing with toxic shame in relationships. And here's a quote by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry from Wind, Sands, and Stars. For there is but one veritable problem, the problem of human relations. We forget that there is no hope or joy except in human relations. That explains a lot. A common joke among 12-step recovering people is the oft-quote statement, we don't have relationships, we take hostages. This is one of those jokes that is aimed at lightening the pain experienced by shame-based folks by trying to establish intimate relationships. Indeed, I would say that intimacy is the number one problem resulting from internalized shame. It certainly has been for me. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Intimacy requires the ability to be vulnerable. To be intimate is to risk exposure of our inner selves to each other, to bear our deepest feelings, desires, and thoughts. To be intimate is to be the very ones we are, and to love and accept each other unconditionally. This requires self confidence and courage. Such courage creates a new space in our relationship. That space is not yours or mine, it's ours. As a shame based person, all this was impossible for me. I had no relationship with myself. I was in hiding, not only from you, but from myself. I was a human doing because I could not go inside of myself. Remember the difference between human doing and human being, and how that develops from the shame based identity, from not having your childhood needs met. That's one of the most direct paths. Continuing with the reading, there was no one there. I had no self. My relationship with myself was rejecting and contemptuous. What I feared most of all was exposure. I had no self to give to anyone. Adult child codependency issues is the title of the section. I suggested earlier that codependency and toxic shame were the same reality. In looking at relationships, the word codependency defines the problem very accurately. The phrase adult child also helps us to see the problem more in detail. Attachment and bond permanence. Because of abandonment trauma, shame based people become adult children who form codependent relationships. These relationships are dominated by fear of abandonment. They are the result of bonding permanence, Alice Miller speaks of, as Alice Miller speaks of. Such relationships are dominated by attachment issues, either over attachment, enmeshment, or being under attached, isolation. As an adult child, it is hard for me to let go of anything. I have notes I took from the first year of college 50 years ago. Wow, I have a whole box of all my college notes. Fascinating. Um, I have boxes full of odds and ends I've been keeping for years. Change for me is extremely difficult. Having been abandoned gives me a feeling of scarcity. I'd better hold on to what I have got because I never really know when there might be more. It's hard for me to delay gratification for the same reason. There may not be any more. I've had a hard time being flexible in my relationships. I've had a monumental time giving up control. I tried to set relationships up in such a way that I become so important to the other person that they cannot leave me. But unfortunately, I would start getting too close, and my commitment phobia would trigger them. My commitment phobia would be triggered. Then I would leave the relationships. Others have the opposite problem. They cannot leave a relationship once they are in it. Control. Control is the great enemy of intimacy. By definition, intimacy excludes one person controlling the other. Control is a byproduct of your disabled will. It is an attempt to will what cannot be willed. You cannot change another person. You cannot fix your parents, spouse, lover, or children. You cannot control their lives or their pain. Enmeshment. Having no authentic self. Enmeshment. Having no authentic self, you look for a relationship uh, with the only self you have, your false self, if you are a victim. The relationship you know anything about is with the only relationship you know anything about is with the persecutor. The opposite is true if you are the uh, persecutor. I was my mom's surrogate spouse and the family caretaker. As my mom's surrogate, I always looked for women I could take care of. With this amount, what this amounts to is a reenactment of the fantasy bond I spoke of earlier. The fantasy bond is an enmeshed codependent entrapment. It's based on the bond permanence that is set up by the abandonment trauma. Once fantasy bonded, we only have one relationship and we repeat it over and over and over again. The way out of all of this is through the original pain and the inner child work, the basic grief work. Our bond fixation results from our authentic self being frozen by unresolved abandonment trauma. Each time we reenact with a new fantasy bond relationship, we are trying to do the grief work. We choose the same kind of person in order to have another chance at resolution, this unconscious pattern that we're trying to resolve the original pain. Going back to the reading, each new partner represents aspects of one or more of our parents. We try to make our partner, into our parents so we can resolve the conflict and move on. Since we are no longer children, it never works. The only way out is to do the legitimate suffering that the grief work demands. To do this, we have to give up the false self and leave home. That is the only way that we can regain our true self. Overinvestment of power, esteem, and expectation. Because many adult children relationships um, is an immature because any adult child relationship is an immature child's relationship. It results in a similar overinvestment of power and esteem in the other person. So pedestalizing the person and giving them your power and not staying grounded in your body. All of these things. That's how that relates. Going back to the reading, such an investment flows from the abandonment, from the abandoned child's needs to have a nurturing parent. Expecting one's partner to provide what one's parent failed is to provide a delusion. It is an unrealistic expectation that ends up in disappointment and anger, and dare I say rage. Projection of our own projection of our own disowned parts, um, projection of disowned parts of ourselves onto relationship partners. So this is the next section. One of the most damaging aspects of shame-based relationships is projecting of our own disowned parts onto the partner. In the movie, terms of endearment, the fascination and uh, repulsion of disowned self was portrayed artfully. Jack Nicholson portrayed a man who was totally identified with his wild, impulsive, sexually indulgent self. Shirley MacLaine portrayed a sexually repressed, perfectionistic, overly controlled, moralistic widow who lived next door. Each incarnated the extreme polarities of toxic shame. Jack Nicholson was dissipate and acted less than human. Sherry MacLaine was holier than thou and acted more than human. The couple had a lot to teach each other as they danced back and forth between attraction and repulsion. Finally, each helped each other integrate the self that had been disowned. He allowed her to embrace her sexual self while she acquainted him with his conservative and nurturing self. When I counsel people in destructive relationships, they are usually relating through their disowned parts. Generous men often marry selfish women. Perfectionist women often marry sloppy men. And nurturing women fall in love with an emotionally unavailable man. Instead of learning from each other by incorporating their disowned selves, they live with these selves expressed in their mates. Since each disowns the part expressed by the mate, they are judgmental and angry about that part in their partner. The integration of all the parts of the self is primarily a process of self acceptance. Wholeness and completeness results from total self acceptance. Wholeness and completeness result from total self acceptance. Just reading that sentence again. Continuing wholeness is the mark of mental health. Total acceptance means that every part of ourself is okay. It is the equivalent of unconditional love. This is great. I really like that. I think yeah, I'll go into this like a little bit. Attraction or repulsion, collages. A variation of the exercise "Making Peace with Your Villagers" was suggested by Reverend Mike Falls. Mike was a counselor for some 30 years. He is a highly gifted and intuitive counselor. When a person comes in with a relational problem, Mike often has them do the following. He tells them to go through the series of magazine and select all of the pictures of the people they feel attracted to. Next, they are to make a collage of these pictures on a poster board. They go through the magazine and select the people who they feel repulsed or turned off by. They also make a large poster of those pictures. The collage of pictures that attracts you is more likely the parts of you that you are over identified with. The pictures that turn you off may very likely be composed of parts of yourself that you disown. Once you are aware of the parts that turn you off, you can dialogue with the disowned parts in a manner discussed in chapter 4. I've used this procedure many times with outstanding results. It's good to do the poster board exercise with the same sex turn on and offs, as well as the opposite sex turn ons and off. Men often feel ashamed of their femininity and women of their masculinity. Carl Jung believed that a part of each person's shadow was his contra-sexual opposite. Every man and woman is the union of male and female hormones. Men have minority female hormones and majority male hormones, and women have minority male hormones and majority female hormones. The feminine shadow of the side, um, the feminine shadow side of the male, Jung called his anima. The male shadow side of the woman is called the animus. Integration of anima animus shadow is crucial for full human integration. I have pointed out how rigid cultural sexual roles are ways to develop a false self, for example, or identify with one part of ourselves. Men are shamed for being feminine by being called names like sissy or worse, and women are shamed for being masculine. I've mentioned Terms of Endearment as a movie that dramatically portrays the male female polarity. Another movie, The African Queen, which stars Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn, is a brilliant portrayal of the male female polarity. Bogart is over identified with his masculine energy, Hepburn over identified with the feminine. Dramatize the fascination repulsion dynamic of disowned parts of the self. Eventually, there is an integration of the disowned self by each person in the movie, and each character is transformed by the additional energies represented by the other. Both movies were Academy Award winners, and And it would be interesting to see how many Academy Award winners portray the universal struggle for integration and wholeness. I'm going to wrap it up right there because now we're going. This is kind of like one whole chunk of text together, and so I'm going to come back to this after my appointment. But thanks for being here, for tuning in. This was another great reading. This is a really outstanding book, and it really talks about how we can understand the energetic polarities within ourselves and within our partners or the people that we date and connect to or attempt to connect to, and how that impacts the nature of our connection, right? Because uh, a male can be either too heavy on the masculine energy or too heavy on the female energy, and a woman can also be the same, too heavy on the masculine or feminine. Just because you're a woman does not mean you can be too feminine. Just because you are a woman does not mean that you cannot be too feminine in terms of your energetic balance. A woman can definitely be too much in her feminine energy. This may come across as like helplessness or subservience, the codependency, like as women are generally socialized to accept these kind of dynamics. And so the same also for the man. And so our awareness of this helps us. Why is it important as we're reading this and going through the reparenting process? Because most people who are in the process of reparenting or who need reparenting, which is much more people on earth than they want to admit, because it's like a little bit of like an ego blow, as we discussed yesterday or the day before. The narcissists like to deny the past pain so that they can keep some fake image in their mind that their past was perfect, and then they put that pain onto other people as a way to externalize it. That's not really the best way to go forward, and it's not going to give you the safe and nurturing relationships that you need. Even in the beginning of this chapter 11, this quote really also stuck with me. Here, this quote here, I really enjoyed this. I don't know if you can read that. Uh, For there is but one inevitable problem, the problem of human relations. We forget that there is no hope or joy except in human relations. And so, I mean, for me, that is like it's a big eye opener, as someone who has struggled with the connection or had difficulty to find the satisfactory types of connection that I'm looking for, which is not at all uncommon for people who are in the process of reparenting, and even more so, broadly speaking, in our society, because social media, internet, all of these things, individualism, capitalism, all of these things have really made people very solipsistic individuals, self-focused, me. Narcissism is rising, so people are not connecting like they used to, and these dynamics are really reaching a peak right now as we are in March 2026. If you're aware of what's going on in the world, you'll understand what I'm saying. If you're that much of a deep thinker, and if you're really aware of what's happening around us right now. And so hopefully, we can use this as motivation, inspiration, and hope that we can move past this and go on to something else, because I'm tired of doing these same toxic cycles with people, and I'm not the only one. It is something that is a worldwide phenomenon that is driven by our culture that is in desperate need of change. And so that's it for today's reading. I'll be back again after my appointment. And I hope you guys take care and have a great day. Cheers.